Up until this point, we've created a couple of simple queries which both return just a single value with a single data type. What if we have a piece of data in our app that's a bit more complex with multiple subfields? How would we model that? We can do so easily by creating a separate class. Say, for example, we had some user data that has some subfields of an ID, a username, as well as a created at time. We'll create a class called user, which again subclass is from graphene.objectType. The ID field will be of type graphene.id. The username will be a string, so that will be graphene.string. And the created at field will have a special scalar. Created at will be graphene.datetime. Now we're modeling our user data. And say we want to create a query that returns a list of users. We'd create that query on our root query type called users. And since it's a list, we can use graphene.list, and we can pass to list the structure of each of the items within it by providing our user class. So we'll pass in user to it. We'll make a resolver for users. And we'll return a list. And within this list, we'll use the user class to create a couple of mock users. For say the first one will have ID 1, create some username, and we'll set created at to the current date, the current time, and we can get that by importing date time. We'll say from date time, import date time. So date time is going to give us the current time if we use datetime.now. We'll create a couple of users. Then we'll execute our users query. But if we try to execute it like this, we'll get our attribute error. And this is because we're not specifying the subfields that we want for each piece of user data. So let's say we want all the fields, ID, username, and created at. Let's try running this again, and we get our list of users. What if we wanted to pass an argument to this query, however? What if we wanted to limit the number of users returned within this list? Say, for example, if we were implementing pagination. We can provide arguments to queries by heading up to the query itself, and in this case passing to list a second argument or a final argument with the name we want it to be. In this case we'll make it limit, where for example if we pass in a limit of 1, our list is just going to return the first user. If we pass in 2, it's going to return both, etc. We also have to declare the data type of our argument, so say that's set to graphene.int. Then to use the argument value that's passed in to users, we'll head to the resolver, and within our parameters we'll include the name of it, limit, and then it's available within the scope of our function, so we can slice it according to the limit value that's passed in. Now if we try providing a limit, say, of 1 to our users query, save it and execute it, in our users list we just get the first user. Note, however, what happens if we remove our limit argument and try executing this. We get an error, and this is because as we've configured this argument, we haven't made it optional. It's required in all cases. So if we want to make limit optional, or if we want to make any argument optional, we can set a default or a fallback value of limit within our resolver by saying limit is set to none. So once we provide that, with no limit, we get our entire list once again.